الرحيم. يسعدني ويشرفني أن أرحب بأخي العزيز والصديق معالي السيد بدر البوسعيدي وزير خارجية سلطنة عمان الشقيقة ضيفا عزيزا.
Minister Badr bin Hamad bin Hammoud al-Busaidi, a dear guest in Egypt, and I am delighted to welcome the accompanying delegation. Today I was honored with my brother, Minister Badr al-Busaidi, to head the 16th session of the Joint Egyptian-Omani Committee that comes in a very important and critical time as the Egyptian-Omani ties are witnessing a very important stage of development under the directives of President Abdelatty al-Sisi and his brother, the Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, the Omani Sultan. The directives to continue ties and develop bilateral ties between the two countries in several fields, whether political, economic, trade and investment. And of course, moving it further along and developing these ties based on the historical ties between the two countries. And of course, this is very important as the great ties binding the two countries and the two leaders, including President al-Sisi and the Sultan. Today's session of the Joint Egyptian-Omani Committee saw the attendance of Minister Mohammed Gobran, the Minister of Labor, and they have witnessed several memorandums of understanding in various fields, in investment, food security, mineral wealth, culture, religion, scientific research, journalism, and financial field and human resources development. And of course, they signed the 16th Joint Egyptian-Omani Committee agreements. Today's meeting shows the great importance put by both Egypt and Oman to follow up with the communique and recommendations of the previous committee held in 2022 in Muscat, and the great development in ties between Egypt and Oman in light of President al-Sisi's very important visit to his second country, the Sultanate of Oman, in June 2022, and the Excellency Sultan Haytham bin Tariq's visit to Cairo in May 2023, which highlights and shows the will and the strong determination of the two countries to further and develop ties. Today I held talks at length with my brother, Minister Badr al-Busaidi, and we discussed the two countries' keenness for further development of ties, either politically and economically as well, and investment ties and trade ties between the two countries. The trade exchange between the two countries has now surpassed $1 billion. However, there is room for further improvement and increasing these ties. Also, we have plenty of Omani companies that work here in Egypt and are investing in Egypt, and we hold them dearly. And there are also many Egyptian companies working in Oman and are working in the Omani markets and are supporting the Sultan's vision and the country's vision 2040 in different fields, including infrastructural areas, tourism, housing units, logistics, transport, port transports as well. And also there has been renewable energy projects and of course the Lala ports development and Egyptian ports, showing how these economic areas can be tied and close to the Suez Canal and the economic zone in both ports. We have great opportunities in reaching self-sufficiency and furthering economic ties with the Omani Sultanate and launching several investment projects and opportunities to allow economic prosperity for the two countries. Also today we talked about the great importance of the Omani Egyptian Business Council, and I had the pleasure of visiting the Sultanate last January and witnessing a meeting between the Egyptian Omani Economic Chamber, and this was very important meeting, and it showed the great potential between the government and private sector of the two countries to work together and further economic and trade relations between the two countries. We also talked about with the Minister of Labor the human capital and how Egypt has been developing its human resources and allowing more technical support, technical educational programs and training programs in order to allow furthering of capacities and between Egypt and the two countries, as was also mentioned by my dear brother Minister Badr Al-Usaidi about the importance of the Egyptian workforce that exists in the Omani Sultanate and how they are of course amongst their brothers and brethren in their second country. However, there is more room for further development of ties in this important workforce sector. Also, I spoke to Minister Al-Busaidi about the regional situation and the current situation in the Middle East and of course the challenges that we are all witnessing. We obviously discussed the need to further collaborate with regards to negotiations, and especially because we have the same goals and the same vision, especially because Egypt and Oman agree and have shared visions and unified visions for the need to de-escalate the situation in the region and the need to reach some calm and to find political resolutions to the situation in the Middle East and a peaceful resolution. And of course we agreed and our visions united that any military resolution is never going to work and will never succeed. And I confirmed from my side that the Omani Sultanate and the whole Gulf area's security is of course very important for Egypt and part of the Egyptian security itself, and we of course spoke about the Palestinian cause, of course the main focus of the developments in the Middle East, and our total rejection of any displacement of the Palestinian peoples of their land and the daily war crimes that are being committed every day on the ground against the Palestinian people, the innocent civilians that are bearing the brunt of this war. All they are trying to do is live a peaceful life on their land, and of course this war and the attacks of the occupation forces on Gaza and also the West Bank and what is happening in the West Bank is now no less dangerous than the situation in the Gaza Strip. We confirmed our total rejection and condemnation of this man-made drought and man-made famine that we are seeing in Gaza. And my brother, the Minister and I discussed all the latest developments with regards to all the efforts by Egypt and our Qatari counterparts and the United States to try and reach a ceasefire as soon as possible, which will guarantee the release of hostages and stop the bloodshed of the Palestinian innocent civilians. And we also spoke about how Israel must take full responsibility for this war and how the situation has totally worsened as they are the occupying force. We also discussed the importance of reaching agreements according to international and humanitarian laws, which are very important to be followed by everyone. We also agreed with the minister that there is only the resolution of the Palestinian people by reaching a two-state solution with East Jerusalem as its capital. This is very important, and we talked about the need to follow international law, and we also agreed on our support for the early reconstruction and development of Gaza by Egypt and the Islamic countries, which is supported fully by the Sultanate of Oman. And I also told him that we are waiting as soon as a ceasefire is reached to commence and host the international conference that has been planned to be hosted in Cairo for the reform and reconstruction of Gaza as soon as possible, so we can quickly assist the Palestinian people in Gaza and support them to recover as soon as possible from the hardships that they have seen. We also discussed with His Excellency the Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi the latest developments with the Iranian nuclear file, and we had similar points of view with regards to the importance of reaching a political resolution, a peaceful resolution to this issue. And I expressed Egypt's great appreciation of the efforts of the Sultanate of Oman to reach some sort of resolution and allow for the return to the negotiating table and their hosting and the rejection of any military escalation, and to reach a denuclearization pact which must be followed by all parties with no exception. We also discussed the need to continue our efforts, our continuous efforts to de-escalate in the situation and try to support the fragile ceasefire, and we need this to stick in order to reach a resolution to the conflict as a whole and reach a peaceful resolution and a political and diplomatic solution. Once again, we appreciate their negotiating capacity to reach a peaceful resolution to the situation in Iran, keeping in mind all the needs of each of the sides, whether the Iranian side or the Arabian or American parties. And we hope that this happens as soon as possible and under the international humanitarian laws, and of course to allow for the de-escalation of the situation in the region. And we have agreed to continue daily consultations and communication to reach this goal of reaching negotiations and reaching a ceasefire and solidifying the current fragile ceasefire. Once again, all efforts by the Sultanate of Oman are truly appreciated in this regard. And we will continue to assist each other, and we have to work together on this file from the grassroots level in order to allow peace to prevail in the whole region of the Middle East, and to reach an agreement and to allow all the countries in the region to denuclearize their countries and agree on this agreement, which Egypt has been calling for since 1974, of reaching a region free of nuclear weapons in the Middle East. With regards to the situation in Yemen and the Yemeni crisis, I would like to once again note the Yemeni efforts that have reached a negotiation and a ceasefire in Yemen, and we are hoping the ceasefire continues. And we obviously also discussed the efforts done by Oman with regards to supporting the maritime movement, especially in the Red Sea, especially because Egypt is directly affected by these attacks. And I also told the foreign minister about the economic losses for Egypt as a result of these attacks in the Red Sea, and how this has affected the navigation and the number of ships passing through the Suez Canal. We also agreed on the need to de-escalate the situation, and this is very important in order to maintain the Omani and Egyptian and Arab security. And also we discussed how important the situation is in the region. We also spoke about the situation in Sudan, and I told him about what the recent visit by the President of the Sovereign Council, Abdelatty al-Burhan, with his brother, the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and we discussed the situation in the Arab region as a whole, including Lebanon and Syria and the Horn of Africa, and we agreed on the need to continue collaboration and discussions on the challenges faced by the region as a whole. Once again, I'd like to thank you and welcome you, Minister Badr al-Busaidi, in your second country, Egypt, and we always hope for continued constructive dialogue between us, and we are always keen to continue with the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Sultan of Oman, Haytham bin Tariq, on the need to further push our bilateral ties. Welcome to your second country, please. In the name of God, thank you very much, my dear brother, Foreign Minister Badr Abdelatty, for what you have said and your kind words towards us and towards the Sultanate of Oman. I have to tell you how happy I am to be here in this hospitable country, Egypt, and thank you for your hospitality and warm welcome. And I am confirming once again in front of all the journalists and all attendees the depth of ties and depth of the relationship between the two countries, the Sultanate of Oman and the Arab Republic of Egypt. I totally agree with the Foreign Minister with regards to all the discussions we had regarding bilateral ties between the two countries, and of course the joint Egyptian-Armenian committees meetings that were held today in Cairo at this historical place today. And of course, today our work solidifies our unified vision between the two countries, politically as well as culturally, and between the two peoples. We are hoping to further these wonderful ties and partnerships on all levels, and we hope to continue our collaboration, which will lead to mutual prosperity for the two countries and the two peoples and the region as a whole, and the Arab region as well, which is a very strategic area of the world. Of course, we discussed several files and regional issues. With regards to the regional issues, there is no doubt that our continued negotiations and discussions are very important in light of the daily increasing challenges, on top of which, of course, is the situation with regards to the Israeli attacks and continued occupation of the Palestinian and Arab lands, and what is being done with regards to crimes against humanity with regards to the Palestinian people. We, of course, greatly appreciate your efforts in Egypt with regards to negotiations for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
القوي والمتين بحل الدولتين وإقامة الدولة الفلسطينية المستقلة على حدود عام 1967. نحن نجدد من على هذا المنبر دعمنا لموقف مصر في قضية سد النهضة.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the press conference held between the Egyptian Foreign Minister, Dr. Badr Abdelatty, with his counterpart, the Omani Foreign Minister, Badr bin Hamad bin Hammoud Al Busaidi, who is on an official visit to Egypt. And they have discussed the, of course, ongoing situation in the Middle East and collaboration between the two countries and bilateral ties. Now we take you to the National Elections Authority, which is announcing details of the coming Senate elections.
النواب والأعضاء والعاملين بالجهاز التنفيذي للهيئة الوطنية للانتخابات. السيدات والسادة الحضور.
Ladies and gentlemen,
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
peace be upon you all.
الديمقراطية في مصر.
Democracy in Egypt is not something new, but has a great history that goes back over 1.5 centuries. When the first Senate was elected under the title of the Shura Council. The first parliamentary elections happened 100 years ago, and this shows Egypt's respect to the people's will. Since that time, the journey has not stopped. Egypt has seen lots of electoral rights, and even with the changes, the only constant is the Egyptian people, who have become more aware of the need to constantly take part in the political sphere. And of course, we need to constantly support the National Elections Authority's work. Opens and starts much earlier than the actual day of the elections by encouraging the Egyptians to take part and giving them all the needed security measures and transparency that is needed and organization that is needed for them to come out of the election process happy and proud.
فإن عمل الهيئة الوطنية للانتخابات
And from here, the National Elections Authority is now starting preparations with regards to the Senate elections.
من الإجراءات التنظيمية
And
واللوجستية
this, of course, has a lot of logistical preparations
اللحظة الفاصلة
in the aim of preparing for the
من هذه الإجراءات
citizen who will come and cast their vote in the ballot box.
على مستوى الجمهورية من أقفال بلاستيكية
And of course,
وصناديق شفافة
we have transparent boxes
سرية التصويت
in order to allow full transparency.
في كافة مراحل العملية
Also,
الانتخابية في مختلف المحافظات. مراجعة وطباعة
the revision
أكثر من
and
35
printing of over
تستخدم في طلبات الترشح وإجراء
the
الاقتراع
all the papers necessary for this process to go smoothly. Also, we
وهو
have
أمر قد يبدو مألوفا ولكن لأول
instructional
مرة خصصنا لوحات إرشادية
tables
ذوي الهمم
to assist the voters, and also we have catered for people with special needs, for example, people who are visually impaired using Braille system, and people with
ذوي الإعاقة البصرية
for people with visual impairments or hearing impairments. And of course, today we are showing you an example of the Braille voting papers, which will allow people with visual impairment to cast their votes freely. Another new thing that we are also using sign language for people with hearing impairments in order to explain to people with hearing impairments exactly the numbers needed in each area. Also, we have QR codes everywhere giving all the instructions that are necessary. We have also divided a directory for the people and the judiciary and allowing this application to be online for people to access it easily. We need, of course, training and constant revision, and hence the National Elections Authority has started online training for over 10,500 employees of the judiciary system on how to manage the electoral process. 360 people have been trained on how to receive voters' papers and how to use the application. Also, we also continue to confirm that the most important thing for the success of the National Elections Authority is the collaboration with the nation's institutions. The constant upgrading of the names of voters, and this is being done constantly with the Ministry of Interior and the different institutions. Also, the administrative upgrades for all the different governorates according to their geographical areas, and this is again being done with CAPMAS in order to prepare the areas for the voters and their locations. Also, the upgrading of the areas where the actual voting will take place and the polling stations and the different schools and areas that will host the voters. And we've seen over 9,600 areas, including health areas, schools, and youth centers as venues. Also, we've discussed with the Foreign Ministry with regards to the Egyptian expatriates and the need to prepare polling stations in different consulates and embassies all around the world for Egyptians abroad to take part and enable them to carry out their political will and political duties. Also, we've coordinated with the Ministry of Health to allow them to have over 109 health visits and labs in order to examine the candidates. Also, we've discussed with the local Egyptian banks to open new accounts under the current laws, and we've also renewed over 69 licenses and over 100 international media companies as well as Egyptian media outlets for them to freely follow on the election process. Also, we are drawing on the latest technologies and digitalization processes. We have prepared over 500 computers to allow the ease of the voting process. We've also developed a system to allow the authority to minute by minute monitor the electoral process and the printing of the ballots. Developed an electronic app for the authority which will be used for the first time on cell phones and mobile phones in order to assist and allow the voter to know where their polling station is and its geographical location using Google Maps, and even to know the amount of people at the polling station and the busyness of the polling station. And this application will be launched just before the elections, and a message will be sent to every single voter on how to use this app. Also, the electoral lists have been upgraded to ensure the voter's name and national ID number, again using this digital application and to be used by the judiciary present. This was a quick summary of the most important efforts by the National Election Authority over the last period of time in order to prepare for the logistics of the electoral process, to give the Egyptian citizen all the needed security and safety and transparency needed for them to cast their votes. We've also worked on several points which has taken a long time in order to prepare by members of the authority and outside of it. And of course, this is all done because of the collaboration and respect and love for the nation. Important to mention all the decisions by the National Elections Authority with regards to the procedures and logistics of the electoral process of the Senate elections will all be put on the authority's website. Now I invite the Judge Hazem Badawi, the Deputy of the Judiciary and Head of the National Elections Authority, to please give his address. In the name of the most merciful, the Egyptian people and the sons of this nation, peace be upon you all. It is in today's press conference that we are announcing details of the coming Senate elections. In the same time as we celebrate the 30th of June revolution that is celebrating its 12th anniversary, and during this
معنى
time.
الحضارة والحرية
We have seen how Egypt showed the whole world civilization and freedom, and how the Egyptian people are the decision makers and takers. And after tomorrow, we also
عن خارطة المستقبل
we commemorate the announcement of the future roadmap that completed the revolution and allowed this revolution to become a national project.
ولولاها ما كنا
And
نجتمع
without
اليوم
this, we would never have been meeting today
ونبشر
to
هذا
announce
الاستحقاق الهام
the details of the coming
لأعضاء
Senate
غرفة البرلمان
elections.
الثانية. السادة الحضور،
Ladies and gentlemen,
سيظل شعب مصر
the people of
هو
Egypt
المبتدأ والخبر
and the citizens of Egypt will always
لأي
be
استحقاق يتم على أرض الوطن.
the main focus of any rights on this land.
وأثق ثقة
And I have
تعادل
full faith
تلك الثقة التي وضعها في هيئاته القضائية للإشراف على الانتخابات
in our judiciary and our judicial
بأن وعي
system
الناخبين
in monitoring these elections,
سيدفعهم لا محالة
and the voters'
لأداء واجبهم تجاه بلدهم
keenness to carry out their national duty
والحصول على حقهم في الاختيار الأمثل
and
للممثلين.
practice their political will to choose their representatives.
ولتكن طوابير الناخبين
And I'm hoping to see, and
رمزاً
I know
لقوة وتماسك
the
هذا
lines
الشعب
of voters will show us how this
وصورة
population
حية نباهي بها العالم
continues
وسط
to be
منطقة
a main
متحدة
player in the decision-making processes, specifically during the current regional hardships and challenges and attempts to restructure the Middle East. And this is a great message to all that the Egyptians are united.
شعب مصر العظيم
Egyptian people, the great Egyptian
إنه
nation,
الدستور والقانون
under the constitution and the law,
بعد موافقة
and
مجلس إدارة
after
الهيئة الوطنية
the
للانتخابات
National Elections Authority's agreement,
جلسته المنعقدة صباح اليوم الثلاثاء
after its meeting
الموافق الأول من
today on the 1st of July
2025 تقرر الآتي:
2025, we have agreed on the following.
دعوة الناخبين
To invite
لأصواتهم لاختيار
Egyptian
أعضاء
voters
مجلس
to
الشيوخ
pick the Shura Council,
على أن يبدأ تلقي طلبات الترشح
and the nominees
اعتبارا من يوم
can
السبت
start from
الموافق
Saturday,
الخامس من يوليو
the 5th of July,
وحتى
to
يوم الخميس
give in their papers
الموافق
till
العاشر من
Thursday, the 10th of July,
ذلك يوميا من الساعة 9
daily from
صباحاً
9 a.m.
إلى 5 مساء
till 5 p.m.
على أن ينتهي العمل في
until
اليوم الأخير
the last day,
الثانية ظهرا.
Thursday, which will end at 2 p.m. No more nominees will be received.
يعلن كشف أسماء المترشحين
The names of the nominees
يوم الجمعة
and their
موافق الحادي
symbols
عشر من يوليو
will be announced on Friday, the 11th of July,
الأخبار والجمهورية.
and will be put in the two national newspapers, Ahram and Gumhuri.
تفصل محكمة القضاء الإداري
The judiciary
تعون على المترشحين
and the court
إن وجد
will be in charge of any
موافق الرابع عشر من يوليو الجاري
committees
الأربعاء
or individuals.
الشهر ذات. تعلن القائمة النهائية
The final lists of the nominees
وبدء فترة
will
الدعاية الانتخابية
start on
اعتبارا من يوم الجمعة
Friday,
الثامن عشر من يوليو
18th July, and this will be the time where campaigning can start,
الترشح
and
الأحد الموافق
this
العشرين من الشهر ذات.
until Sunday, the 20th of July, where anyone can withdraw their nomination.
الصمت الدعائي
The
يوم الخميس الموافق الحادي
Thursday, the 31st of July, is the last day for campaigning, and electoral silence begins. Campaigning silence begins.
والجمهورية
The elections abroad will happen on Friday and Saturday, the 1st and 2nd of August.
تجرى الانتخابات داخل
The
الجمهورية
elections inside Egypt
يومي الاثنين والثلاثاء الموافقين الرابع والخامس من شهر أغسطس.
on Monday and Tuesday, 4th and 5th of August.
تعلن نتيجة الانتخابات وتنشر بالجريدة الرسمية.
The results of the elections will be put in the newspapers on the 12th of August in Ahram and Gumhuriyya newspapers, and this will be the second time people can discuss any reruns that are needed. And this is the deadline of the 14th of August. The higher administrative court will look at any disagreements starting from Friday the 15th of August until Sunday the 24th of August in order to see. And again, this will be the day that any rerun campaigning will stop. The reruns outside Egypt will be held on Monday, Tuesday, 25th and 26th of August, whilst the reruns inside Egypt will be held Wednesday and Thursday, 27th and 28th of August. The final results will be announced once again and printed in the national newspapers Ahram and Gumhuriyya on Thursday, on the 4th of September 2025. And for whoever wants to run, I would like to address you. To run for this post is not for your social benefit, but it is a great national responsibility which needs a great vision and a true leadership in order to serve the nation and serve the people, not for personal gains or personal interests. Ladies and gentlemen, the previous years have shown that the National Elections Authority runs these elections in an institutional manner which aims to further democracy in Egypt and allow it to further mirror the Egyptian citizens' will in order to get a stable democratic citizenship. This does not happen just by a few slogans, but is built by the internal beliefs of the Egyptian citizen that he or she is the main component of the equation. In this regard, the National Elections Authority has taken an educational role as well. We started to target students in schools, and we've met the youth and women and the elderly and people with special needs in several conferences and workshops, and also with other political leadership and NGOs and other citizen organizations who have also attended these workshops. This is out of our faith that the most important thing is the need for the Egyptian citizen to participate truly and fully to reach the aim that we are hoping for, which is that these elections become the norm for the Egyptian citizen. I would like to end my address by a message for all Egyptians. going to the ballot boxes
ليس مجرد
is not just your political right,
بل هو أداء لأمانة
but is also a
ومسؤولية
political responsibility
أمام ضميره
which you will be
وأمام وطنه.
put in front of by your nation and your own
كل ورقة
conscience.
صراع
Every single paper ballot
سطر يكتب في كتاب
is
المستقبل.
a line that has been written in the future of this great nation,
مشاركة في صون الأرض
and a role to protect this
وتجديد
land
عهد الوفاء
and renew
التي تستحق.
the relationship and promise of Egypt that is worth it.
والهيئة الوطنية للانتخابات
The National Elections Authority
تعاهد الله وتعاهدكم
promises you in front of God
أن تظل صادقة في
to
التزامها
constantly be honest and
محايدة في
faithful
مواقفها
and neutral in all its stances,
حريصة على أن يصل
keen
صوت كل مصري
to get every single Egyptian's voice into the ballot box
حرا لا يملى عليه أو
freely
يوجه.
with no interference.
عاشت مصرنا الغالية
Long
حرية
live Egypt,
مستقرة.
strong and independent.
وحفظ الله
And may
شعبها
God
وأرضها
protect
من كل
its
سوء.
lands and its peoples.
والسلام عليكم
Peace be upon you all.
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much to the Judge Hazem Badawi, the National Elections Authority head, and ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Ahmad Benderi, the Judge, the National Elections Authority, and all to our press practitioners. Thank you very much for your attendance of this press conference, and again we welcome you to visit the website www.elections.net in order to receive all the latest updates with regards to the upcoming Senate elections. May God always protect Egypt and provide its security. Thank you very much.